Hi, I'm L. Scott Caldwell, and you're listening to You Might Know Her From with Ann and Damien.
All right, we took an edible in order to watch Spice World, and then guess what? It's not available to stream anywhere. And Damien's like, we got to record fast before we get stoned. And I was like, it's fine. Whatever it is, what will be, will be. We've got an incredible actress interview for this month, as always, but we were excited to talk to you about Spice World. So we're going to pivot tonight on our hang after our recording. But thank you for joining us back here, meeting us with our energy on another episode of You Might Know Her From.
With Ann and Damien. If this is the first time you've ever listened to our show, this is our monthly podcast where we, longtime friends, collaborators, best friends, actress, sexuals, come together. We shoot the shit. We talk about what we're watching and reading and listening to, what we're obsessed with, what we hate, and then we always interview a fabulous actor in every episode. So we have that coming for you in just a little bit. But as Anna mentioned, we are just on the precipice of becoming high. So we are moving swiftly, but not too fast, because if we dabble in the being in the matrix, as I like to say, towards the end of the episode, I think you might like it.
Yeah, I wanted to share with you that as expected, I'm binging something over the last 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
I am a cult documentary kind of gal, and that sometimes dabbles in true crime because I grew up like an Unsolved Mysteries, Dateline, NBC, Stone Phillips kind of family.
Love Stone.
Love Stone. You know what I remember? Things that stick in my brain was that Rob Lowe was actually a really good host of SNL, and he did the best Stone Phillips impersonation I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, maybe I like Rob Lowe, and then that quickly faded, and I was like,
add it to our list of things to maybe revisit tonight.
Yeah, Stone. It was surprisingly good. I think he also maybe played Shaggy on that same episode. But it's like somebody hosted SNL, and you're like, wow, I really thought you were going to bring nothing to the table, and you're surprisingly funny.
I remember when Sarah Michelle Gellar, just to bring it all back, did Posh Spice, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty impressed. And I think she also did Debbi Matanopolous at The View.
Oh my God, you're right. She was so
and
good. What is the bit they're doing PSAs for rheumatoid arthritis? Don't get rheumatoid arthritis. Get girl power. So good. And then with Sherry O'Terry. Sporty Spice. I was and she would jump and kick.
Ginger, yeah. And then
Molly Shannon was Baby.
Oh no, who do you think was scary? It was probably
Chris Kattan. It was Chris Kattan with a horrible wig. This is my guess. I think it was Chris Kattan.
Yeah, that seems right.
I can see him in the wannabe, the green tank top for some reason.
That's so interesting. I wonder who was Tracy Morgan was Star Jones on The View. I guess that was pre-Whoopi. I'm just trying to think of how they dealt with race then, because they had no.
They didn't, right?
Interesting. They had Chris Kattan play Mel B. We think we're gonna confirm this.
We'll fact check it, but I do I don't remember where we were going. Rob Lowe. Why were we talking about Rob Lowe?
Who cares?
Who cares?
No, you.
I'm okay. So I grew up on sort of true crime, 2020, Dateline, whatever. I watched The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, also 10 years after it was a thing. And then I just found out that they made it into a made-for-TV movie series with Ellen Pompeo and the guy from The Morning Show, one of the Duplass brothers. And I don't even know, but do you know about Natalia Grace?
Yes, of course. We talked about this at a party a week ago.
I know. I'm just saying they made it into a miniseries. So now it's haunting me.
But give our listeners context real quick.
Okay, so it's this story about this family that seems like hucksters and they're horrible, and they adopt a child, and then they're like, is she actually she's a small person that also has a degenerative sort of spinal, some sort of disease or disability requires her to have a fair amount of medical care. So they adopted her from I think an orphanage in Ukraine, and then it's okay, so she gets to them and they think that she's 6 and she's a little person. Then they're like, is she an adult person?
Right.
Is she an adult person? And is she killing
me? The father seems gay and a pageant dad and
awful.
A psychopath.
Yes, a complete psychopath. It's really those things where you're do these people really exist? And it's somehow you found them and now you're putting them on camera. It's all, I'm not saying it's a good documentary. I'm not recommending it, but I really got sucked in. Yes. And then it was okay, I watched the first season, and then it was one of those things where we're doing an update, actually 3 months later, and now here's another 6 episodes. I am unfortunately the perfect person to advertise.
Did you watch this or with
No. This was me alone. Okay. And this is what I'm saying, where it's if it's Netflix, it's so easily downloadable to your phone. And I'm not proud of this because I'd love to be the person. I don't play games really on the train, but I have started, in my
TV
mental state, I will download things on Netflix and like watch them. And sometimes we have
You've
to do
had a
that
rough
for an
couple
actor.
years. You deserve.
Thank you. A couple of years. Yeah. Well, that's accurate. But I would like watch an episode in the morning with coffee and then like download it and watch like an episode on the train there and then like an episode on the train home. And you're like, Anne, you watched like 7 hours somehow today. You consumed 7 hours of this horrible documentary. All of this is to say, Natalia Grace really got me. And
I was into the idea that she was really like a 40-year-old that was scamming them. Like that made me laugh, but then I don't think that is the
It goes
reveal.
on for so long, but then I have to tell you, it's not just that family that you're dealing with. Then there's a second family, then there's a third family. And then you're like, oh my God, is she a killer? Is she a psychopath? Because they're like, she's standing at the foot of my bed. And obviously it's really horrible. And, it doesn't make fun of the situation, but it has, I think the documentary has a point of view. And I don't think that they're necessarily on Natalia Grace's side. And ultimately it's like a very sad, weird story.
Yeah.
But like at the heart of it is like this family basically abandoned a 9-year-old in an apartment by herself for like 2 years. And you're like, this is crazy. Anyway, Natalia Grace got me into the mindset I think Netflix must have just been like monitoring all of my insane behavior.
Max. That's on
Natalia
HBO.
Grace.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, there's a new documentary about Natalia Grace now on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
You know how we watched Twin Flames on like Amazon and yes, whatever.
Yes.
So obviously they knew what I was up to and they pushed me something called Making a Murderer, which again, I think came out in like 2017. I know I'm about 10 years behind all of this, but that is how I watch things. Sometimes I just need some distance from it after its popularity has waned, and then I'll watch all of it. So I haven't Googled. This is what happens when I do these sorts of horrible documentaries.
You wait to finish.
I don't Google it. I don't
Ever?
Google it because I don't want to know how it. So it's like playing out for me. And this is what's I think unethical about it and why we consume this. And we could get into the psychology of why someone consumes things like this as if it's a movie when it's real life. Like I think that's part of the horrors baked into the genre. But I know this was like really famous, and it became really famous because this guy was released from prison in part because of the documentary. And then it's like
The father?
what? Yes, but I mean the documentary follows him first getting released, and then it's like, will the nephew get released, etc. I'm not Googling any of it. It probably was like headline news. I have no idea how it ends, and so I have like 3 episodes left. But Damien, I thought it was like 4 episodes. It's 2 seasons of 10 episodes each, and I've watched all of it in 3 days. And I was like, and I've been working, so it's like I have been watching it in the little snippets that when I get 10 minutes, I'll like watch 10 minutes of it, and I don't think it's good for my mental health, but some of the lawyer characters are just so like one of the women is really like Parker Posey in The Staircase.
Well, I was just thinking about Parker Posey in The Staircase and how great that is, but I was like, that is based on a real person,
Right?
And you watched that documentary and you were like, Damien, she's just like that.
Yeah, I watched again. It was like one of those things with like 20 hours where they're like, we have another update. Somebody new has done something horrible. I am not proud of the fact that I feel like it's kind of in the zeitgeist the last 10 years for like white women to be consuming true crime. I read this article that I sent to our true crime friend, Alex, and it was about True Crime Con. Did you know this existed?
I'm very aware.
Wait, okay, so I had no idea. This is what I'm saying. I'm like in a moment of reading about all this shit, and it was like last November, and it's like Jean-Benet Ramsey's dad is like the keynote speaker, and then it's all of these people that either experienced trauma themselves or are relatives or survivors of people who were like murdered going to like a convention.
But it's also like what's that podcast that became very popular several years ago? Not Serial, but
your favorite murder, or
yeah,
whatever
that
it is.
shit, whatever that like that. Aren't they there and stuff like that too?
Probably.
Yeah, I have some colleagues who went because they work on like a talk show that is like categorized as true crime.
Oh my God.
And so they went with the host and like I guess with like they had a panel and everything.
Okay, I would like to be ushered into that next year.
It's so
I don't want to pay for it.
I don't know where it was. I think it was in Vegas.
I think
and it was like in a huge convention center.
The
like
article,
BravoCon, but it was like CrimeCon.
Right, and I guess they get paid to be there. Like, oh no, they don't get paid. The people don't get paid to be there. I think is the whole point.
Yeah, I was gonna say like maybe if you're like you probably like have to rent a booth, but then it's like you probably like get to sell merch and like it's like a way to.
And honestly, the article was kind of fascinating because it said even
though
this
seems Ramsey's dad doing right. I started watching that documentary and I actually turned it off because I was like, I know that there's not an answer to this. So like, do I want to invest time in this? It just like it appeals to something about wanting to be a detective, but also because that is one of those cases that was like so. I mean, I feel like the 90s really that became a time, right?
Totally.
Of like
Menendez brothers.
Yeah, between the Menendez brothers and Amy Fisher and
Lorena
Bobbitt, which we both are obviously obsessed with. We tried to convince Jiggly Caliente to do her on Snatch Game. And like there were like a couple cases in Philadelphia that were like, it was like updates every night. It would be like this woman with like girl was missing on spring break, and then there was another woman who was like missing her, and they thought her fiance like, and then they did find out that he like chopped her up and put her in a cooler, and it was like
always him.
And it's like I'm like 11, you know what I mean?
know.
Like watching this on like the local news.
I wonder if other cultures have this same degree of sort of true crime. I mean, I know that like there's a lot of detective shows like Murders in Iceland.
It's such a light and fun topic, but like it is interesting the way that it permeated the culture. I think like in the 90s, and then I don't know if it like I don't know that it went away. I think that it like continued, but I feel like yes, there's a resurgence of it now. But like even Tanya and Nancy, I was obsessed with that as a kid, and it was like about like a hitman hitting an athlete.
It was about Jeff Gillooly, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not proud that I've sort of leaned into this sort of material when I need like a distraction, because what does that say? Oh my gosh, she's so allergic. Spring has sprung in New York and we're all allergic.
Including Ronette, yeah.
I'm not proud of the fact that it has been bringing me a little bit of calm during when I just sort of need a distraction. Like, what does that say about me and my brain? But I really have gotten very into this, and so I'm feverishly awaiting the end. I just have to power through, I think, the last 2.5 episodes, which I'll do on my ride home tonight, and then probably when I get home. But
you love it.
I kind of love it.
Would you like to interview Natalia Grace for the Patreon?
No.
Okay.
I think it's a sad story. You know, this is the thing. It's like all of these things. I'm like, why am I consuming this for entertainment? And they're giving me like 20 hours of content about this, and I'm like consuming it while I'm eating dinner and brushing my teeth. And
I know. I was
waking up in the morning. I was like, I'm sure people have written entire treatises on this, so I'm not proud of it, but it has been bringing me not comfort, just a little bit. Like I've been able to disconnect a little bit.
I know. I was thinking about this the other day. I think I sent you a TikTok, and somehow this fell in my feed of like this like person talking about the way that they like met Jesus, and it was
oh my god,
and it was like she was like he was a cult leader though, but it was like she was also like on the astral plane, like the way she was talking. And I was like this is like funny to me as like a performance art piece, but I think this is not a performance art piece. I think this is like real. And I like it's like how I loved Mother what was it called? Mother God, whatever that was.
Walk on Fire,
something.
Yeah.
And then I also like I was thinking about recently also like, Twin Flames, like I want to know what's happening with them now. And I was like, to your point, like it's real life. So like people are really in these control groups and cults, and it's alarming. So anyway, I don't think you need to be too hard on yourself or have too much shame about it. I think it is an interesting thing about like Western culture and the way we consume like horrible, violent, like genre of like
real crime, like, not just fictionalized.
Correct. Yeah. But speaking of the Patreon, we were going to maybe talk about, watching Spice World. I don't know. Maybe we'll do some sort of book club sometime soon, but I am going to shout out the Patreon. If, thank you for listening to the podcast. And if if you've been with us, we love you and we thank you so much for subscribing and listening. Check out the Patreon. We do special interviews there. We book club things. We do a monthly newsletter. We do little check-ins and all sorts of things there too. So please check out the Patreon at You Might Know Her From. Right now we've been talking about this project, like connecting the dots of musical theater, and this project includes like this is a project that we have created. So it's like kind of digging everything about Gypsy we can learn, everything about Sunset Boulevard we can learn, and everything about like Rent that we can learn. So currently we are both reading books of Sarah Schulman's. Characters from Sarah's book, People in Trouble, were the basis for a storyline in Rent the Musical. So I'm reading that source material.
Mm-hmm. And I'm reading Stage Struck. It is, about sort of Sarah Schulman's experience with sort of discovering that her characters like had popped up in Rent and all of that, and what that looks like, and what art with a capital A and looks like.
So if that scratches any part of your brain, we're going to do something on the Patreon with that in the next month or two. So giddy up for that. Well, I think without further ado, and when I say further ado, I mean before we get stoned.
Completely.
Let's get into this great interview we have with L. Scott Caldwell now.
You might know her from Insecure,
Lost,
The Fugitive,
Bad Monkey,
How to Get Away with Murder,
Waiting to Exhale,
The Net,
Soweto Green,
and the Broadway production of Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Okay, we're back, and it's a huge day for You Might Know Her From, because we are with someone that we have been courting for a long time. We are here with Tony-winning actor L. Scott Caldwell. L. Scott, thank you for being with us on the show.
You are welcome, Damien. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for, courting me and pursuing me. And I never know why until you actually catch me what the real what the real reason is. But that's life. That's been my life.
Well, the real reason is that you are a multi-talented actor who has been a utility player in so many projects. We're so delighted to have you on this show. And right now, you're in a high-profile show. You're a series regular on Apple TV's Vince Vaughn-led dark comedy Bad Monkey. You play Yaya, the grandmother to Jodie Turner-Smith's Dragon Lady. This character is very cool. You actually do, in fact, get to act opposite the titular Bad Monkey quite a bit. I'd love to open it up here and start with, like, what kind of scene partner was Crystal the monkey, and how difficult was it to act with an animal?
Okay, so uh, that's not really an unusual question. But I will basically just say that Crystal gives a master class in acting. Okay, so picture this: you're in a scene with a live actor, a human, okay? You've got to be fully in that scene, okay, exchanging with the actor, but you've also got to pay attention to your trainer
Uh-huh.
that's behind the camera. Okay. So there's this split focus. Okay. But you would never know that she's actually being, manipulated by her trainer. So that's what I mean. Because to have that kind of incredible focus to make you believe that she is fully in the scene with you while at the same time having to keep her eyes on her trainer at all times is an amazing skill. And there's something actually that's a little sad about it as well, because, she doesn't have agency.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of a double-edged sword, and I was very surprised that, when they came to me and asked me, well, we're thinking about, teaming you with the monkey. Is there any problem? Well, the reason they asked me that is because the first day on set, they flew me in from Scotland. I was over there doing a project, which I think you know what I was doing, but I can't say the name of it because you know why, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
So
know.
they
We know.
flew me from Scotland. They said, we only need you for one day because we want to establish you in the show, but we haven't written anything. Okay. So I
Okay.
kind of basically took the job without there being anything written for me, but they promised that they were going to be writing for my character. They promised. Okay. Because my character is the only one in the
Yeah.
show that's not in the book.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So I'm very familiar with the book. So when I get this offer in Scotland, I'm saying, but what, wait a minute, there is no yeah. And I mean, I know the book
Mm-hmm.
so well, I knew that there was no yeah. And so I thought, well, are they calling me about being the dragon queen? Because in the book, the dragon queen is a much older woman. She's in her 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Okay, seducing
Okay.
young men, and she's got, brown teeth, and she's a villain. Okay. So then I'm hearing, no, 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 no. Jodie Turner Smith is playing the Dragon Queen. And I said, wait a minute, that's no, because nobody would throw Jodie out of bed for crumbs. Okay. So What are they doing? So I would later find out that Bill Lawrence decided that he wanted to play the Dragon Queen as a young, vital, sexy woman. And he got permission from Carl Hyacin to do so. So then he had to bring somebody else in to play against Jodie. So that's where they came up with the idea that, well, she needs a grandmother. I don't know why they didn't just say, well, she needs a mother. But okay, they wanted to stretch me.
Right.
So they said, no, grandmother. But anyway, so I fly from Scotland to make an appearance in the first episode. And you probably see I had no lines. And they hadn't even established exactly, what my character was going to look like or any of that. And so I get to the location and they take me into the house where they're going to be shooting, and that's going to be our house. And I step in and I say to the AD, "There's a cat in here." He said, "Oh, no, no, no. We've cleared the place. The owner had cats, but we've cleared the place." I said, "There's a cat in here." And he said, "No, there is no cat." And he said, "How would you know?" I said, "Because I have alurophobia." And I said, I'm very keen and sensitive to whenever there's a cat, okay, any place near. And all of a sudden, this big orange cat jumps out of its hiding place and runs, through the house. So I use the word alurophobia with the AD. I told him, he said, "Well, what does that mean exactly?" I said, "It means I have a phobic fear of cats." Okay, so you think you're just talking to one person, but an AD is what they call a SPY. All right. So when they come to me, I come back and I'm approached by one of the producers, and he says, "Well, we're thinking we want to use you more with Crystal, and we want to know if there's a problem." And I said, "Well, why would there be a problem?" He says, "Well, I understand you have alurophobia." Well, you don't want the producers to know all your
Yeah.
business,
Right.
Right, right, right.
Sooner or later, they use it not for good.
Right.
Okay. But I said, "Well, yeah, that's true." And so he says, "So we're wondering, would that spill over into working with Crystal?" I said, "I really don't think so." He said, "Well, we've got to be sure." So they set up a
My
date
God.
with,
Chemistry test between you and
well,
Crystal.
yeah, chemistry thing. And so they set that up and they filmed it. And I was with the trainers and I was with Crystal, and then Crystal had a stand-in that she travels with. Okay, so they're actually two monkeys. Sometimes, when Crystal, if it was a long shot and you wouldn't know it was Crystal, they would sub in her stand-in. And they lived together and traveled together, okay, so that they could be mates, you know what I mean? Because I guess it gets lonely for a monkey out there in them streets, with nobody to relate to. But anyway, it went like gangbusters. We had such a terrific time, and the trainers were able to talk me through the parameters of working with a crystal or any kind of animal that's, being manipulated by a trainer. So, one of the main things they cautioned me about is I could not use my hands. Okay, so you maybe will always see if it's a scene where I'm not up and mobile or whatever, I'm not using my hands because the trainer uses their hands with signaling, so she could get confused if I could accidentally am using my hands and she misreads a
Right.
signal. So you're not allowed to use your hands at all. And one of the things that happened eventually in this meeting is She jumped into my lap and she climbed up on my shoulder and she yanks off my head wrap and begins to groom me. She's scratching my scalp and eating, whatever she's got under the fingernails or whatever. And she keeps doing that and, just
Were you charmed by it, or were you like
no, no, no.
scared?
I was very comfortable because it was fascinating. Because you know that, and you probably know this if you've dealt with animals at all, is they have a sense, and they can read people's energy. So they know who they want to be around and they know who they don't want to be around. I mean, I don't know what happened eventually, but I was given to understand that Vince didn't like the monkey. Um,
Or the monkey didn't like Vince.
I don't know. No, hey, is there an echo in here? No, because that was not me. I didn't say that. It's
That
one
was
of
me.
those
That was
people.
me.
It's one of those other people in the room that. But anyway, it was very successful, and obviously she took to me, and so then I started to feel very protective
Hmm.
about Crystal. And in fact, one night we were working, it was a late night, and we were last up on the schedule to shoot the scene that we were shooting. And when we completed it, Crystal took her hands, put them on her thighs, and went, just like a human. She was so tired.
She was done.
She was so tired. She was exhausted.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, but imagine not being able to quit because you're tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it,
Yeah.
it was it I didn't think I was going to be telling this story, but that was the sad part of it. Because one of the other things that I do as a member of SAG-AFTRA is I serve on the IACF fund. And one of the things that we do is we fund animal safety
Hmm.
on the sets. The people that do the closing credit, no animals were harmed. And we're in the midst of revamping the whole system,
Wow.
because a lot of sets are not covered because there's been such a proliferation of shooting. In the beginning, when American Humane started to cover the sets, it was just a few studios producing film and a few networks producing television, and then of course commercials. But with the proliferation of streaming, and that's a beast that wants to be fed, there's just so much product that a lot of sets don't even get covered. So animal safety is one of the main concerns that we have, and actor safety,
Mm-hmm.
because we're working together and things could go horribly wrong if there is not sufficient and proper monitoring of animals and humans working together.
Did you see the documentary Chimp Crazy? Did you see this?
No, I haven't, but I have it on my list.
Okay.
You recommending it, or is it going to make me really crazy?
It's very sad. It's dark. So I think if based on your
But fascinating, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Alan Cumming tells a similar story about this chimpanzee that he worked with in some movie like in 1992, and he was like, I feel like I felt this spiritual connection with this chimp,
Mhm.
and then I felt very sad about the sort of state of this chimp's life. And so
Uh-huh.
there's like a full circle story of him like following this chimp. But yeah, the conditions that I think chimps are no longer allowed in films. Is that right? But like these little capuchin monkeys are currently allowed.
Well, that's the breed that Crystal is.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Beware of the documentary. It is interesting. It's fascinating, but yeah, it is a little hard to watch.
okay.
We will dive into your theater work, which is really what we're so excited to get to. But I think we want to just address that, like, a lot of our listeners are probably going to know you best as Cece, Molly's mom from the HBO comedy Insecure. And you've said in past interviews that Molly's family represented stability for her because most of her personal relationships were kind of rocky.
Mhm.
And then in the 5th season, your character dies, which was sort of devastating for us
I
because,
died?
yeah, in Insecure?
Huh?
In Insecure?
What?
You have a heart attack, right?
What?
An insecure.
Surely you jest.
No, wait, really? Don't you have a heart attack and insecure and die in the final season?
Are we misremembering?
Okay. Okay, yeah, I did die.
Okay, I was like, wait, we watched all of that
But
in real time.
I don't know what happened.
I was mortified. I
Just
was like, oh my gosh, should we? I was like, I watched the
Right.
show in real
what
time.
it looks like. Okay.
Oh, man.
Oh my God.
But that's what I think in the last few years it started to become like a pattern. Everybody, invited me, to the party to kill me off.
It's messed up.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Is that like a little bit of a mind fuck, like dying on screen in that way? I feel like it must do something odd, or it just seems like an interesting experience.
Well, because I don't know how it turned out, I would say no. It's psychologically for the actor, me. It feels like a cheat
Mm-hmm.
in some kind of way because in mystical, cultures, there's this belief that the camera takes your soul away. So there's already that. You're already giving it up in that way. And then they want to add a narrative
Right.
that says, yeah, and we're going to do a fait accompli, you're dead.
Yeah.
So I started to be very annoyed by that.
Did they tell you on Insecure in advance? Like, were you privy to that?
No, I mean, I had no idea when they invited me back for that final season that was their plan because they're very, closed with the scripts and all of that.
Sure.
So, they don't tell you very much. So I thought I had, kind of gotten by because I have the stroke and then so there's this whole episode and then in the next episode she comes out of it. Okay, she's
Oh,
in
yes,
a
yes,
coma
yes.
and she comes out of it and
Mm-hmm.
so I thought, okay, dodge that bullet.
Right.
And then I went away to do something else and I got a call, well, they're going to need you back for the final episode because Molly's getting married, and so they want you in that episode. I said, "Oh, that's terrific!" And so I go back thinking I'm gonna, be picking out a dress for the, mother of the bride scene, and no, I find out at the end of the
Oh
day
my God.
after they're doing all of the presenting me with the presents and oh so happy that you joined us to tell this story and all of that and we're saying goodbye and I go to my trailer and I'm talking to the guy that played my husband in that and he says, oh, okay, so I guess this is it. I said, yeah, I guess this is it. I said, but it was I enjoy working with you and da 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 da. And he says, so that's going to be tough on us in the next episode when we're at the wedding because I think they're going to just have a picture of you. I said, a picture of me? What do you mean?
So,
So he let the cat out of the bag and said, you don't make it, right? But I say, why? Why is that really necessary?
right.
I mean, why?
I guess it was an effective tool in making Molly realize that relationships are finite and like it does bring her and Issa together. So for the greater storytelling, I think I understand it as a coming of age, but as a person who loves actresses, we talked about this like oh, El Scott's here. Because what was the other project you watched? And oh, Gridiron Gang. You're the Rock's
Yeah,
mother, right?
right. Where you're in the hospital.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe that started it, but don't start me on the Gridiron Gang. But yeah, so I died on A Million Little Pieces,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and the writer, at the beginning of that project, I had said no to it because I wasn't, really interested in doing it, and the writer, chased me down and just, begged and pleaded, oh, we've got to have you in the show, and da 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 da. And then when, we were making the deal for the final 3 or 4 episodes that I was going to do, there was no indication that that was going to happen. And then I was actually on the set, had done an episode, and was in costume. And so we were discussing, well, what will she be wearing in the next episode or something. And the costume designers kind of, they looked at each other, and I'm thinking, well, what are they, what's that about? Because they were basically saying, you're not going to be needing no more clothes.
My God. Oh, what a business. What a business.
But the writer, sent me a very long letter and said, well, we decided it was going to be you instead of the father because that would have more of an emotional impact or something like that. But in the world of television, you can always come back if you. But in fact, they invited me back, and I said, "No, thank you."
Yeah, have you come back as a ghost yet? I feel like,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Something they had. That's exactly what they had in mind. That I would be
right.
flashing, be in the dreams of.
Oh God.
And I said,
Okay.
"No, I'm not. No, no, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
No, thank you. Fool me once."
Good for you. Good for you.
Uh, but I didn't die in Bad Monkey.
You and
Yes, you have a season.
Yeah.
There is a season 2 coming.
Yeah, but remember, I wasn't even in the book. So,
okay. Okay, Elscott. So you
right, go ahead.
you played Rose Nadler, one of the most beloved survivors on all of Lost, who was eventually reunited with your husband Bernard on the island. And of course, this show shot mostly on location in Hawaii and quickly became this enormous cultural phenomenon. So from the beginning, the writers of Lost claimed that they had an ending in mind. Do you believe them?
Um, you mean, do I believe writers?
Did you believe them then that there was an ending plotted out?
From season 1?
Uh, no.
Yeah.
No, I think they, in my opinion, and I don't, know that much about it, but because, I wasn't a regular, okay, I was supposed to be. I
Right.
got that job on the day that I was moving into this house that I'm in right now, with my fiance who was terminally ill with cancer.
Mm,
And so I got this, urgent call from my agent saying, they want to meet you on this project. And I said, well, I'm in the middle of moving. We were, loading stuff on trucks and all of that. I said, I can't, there's no way I can get anywhere today. And I said, especially if they want me to read anything. And they said, no, 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 it's not a read or anything. They just want to meet you. I said, well, okay. I said, I'll try to, scoot by there and, between, dropping furniture off and all of that. And so I went in and I met JJ and Damon, and I can't remember who the third person was, and the casting director. And so had a great meeting with them, and, left and said, good luck, whatever. They didn't tell me very much about the project. And then when I got home, I got a call saying, are you willing to move to Hawaii? Because this job is going to be shooting in Hawaii. So I talked it over with my fiance, and he said, I think we can do that. We hadn't even gotten married yet, but we got married when I went to do the pilot of Lost. That's where we got married.
Mm.
And again, I made the mistake of just opening my mouth and
Mm.
talking to somebody, this time to a producer. So we're talking about the fact, oh, so you're getting married in a couple of days and da 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 da. And I said, well, it's bittersweet. And he says, I said, my husband's, husband to be is terminally ill. We don't know how long he has, and da 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 da. And one of the things that we had talked about is because one of the things that he did is he was a cameraman, and he thought, well, if this is gonna, be a regular gig, maybe I'll be able to be hired on the, B camera, or, something that maybe I can get some work. And
Mm-hmm.
so I guess I might have been mentioning it with that in mind. And the next thing I know, get back from doing the pilot, and people are coming, why weren't you at the such and so party? And I said, what party was that? And it's like, oh, know anything about it. So they had this plan for including that character as a regular, and then suddenly she wasn't included. Anyways, that's why you don't see a lot of Rose. I know people say they loved her on the show and all of that, but the game's afoot. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The character of Rose had, this is interesting, that she had terminal cancer as well. And the
They took
island
that
sort of,
story from me,
Yeah.
from my real life.
what was that? If you don't mind sharing, or if you're comfortable sharing, can you talk about how you found that balance between the work and the ways it mirrored your real life with your partner who was struggling with,
Well,
like
he only
living?
lived, we got married in 2004, and 2005, he was gone. He was in heaven. So he only lasted a year. I hear people talk about using their real life trauma to inform the work, but I don't believe in that, in terms of oh, I need tears for this scene, so I'm going to pull up the fact that I'm sad about my husband passing away. I don't believe in that kind of work. Everybody has their own way of how they like to work, but I don't necessarily believe it's necessary to pull in your real life for the sake of your art, so to speak. So in that way, I obviously was sad. Your energy shifts. So there is a sadness that happens to you, and it's just the way it is. But at the same time, you've got to continue living your life. So you may have it, and some people wear it as a shawl, and some people wear it as a badge, and all of that. I'm always more interested in what the character that I'm playing is doing. To be able to do that kind of exploration and research of a character is more interesting to me than playing your real life and passing it off as
Yeah.
character work.
Did you feel like you had a buddy on set? I just can imagine that, like, being in Hawaii, there maybe a little bit of a pressure cooker. Like, was there somebody? Did you have a pal there?
No,
Yeah.
no,
Okay.
no.
El Scott, you boast over 160 IMDb credits
I
from our
don't.
from our research. This is what it says.
No, I don't. I've done 160 things.
100,
106.
Oh,
106
106.
credits,
Okay, well
yes.
that's
Episodes,
uh,
films. And in the 1990s, you were popping up in some of the most iconic films of the decade, like The Fugitive, Devil in a Blue Dress, Waiting to Exhale, and The Net. We love these movies. We really need to do a special check-in with them. When you're clocking in for a project like this, and you maybe don't have a ton of dialogue, but you're in the scenes, you're doing scene work, you're part of like the atmosphere. How do you, as like a Tony-winning actor, how do you bring your craft to the scene and to the character to like leave your imprint on it?
Well, I never think in terms of, how am I going to imprint or impact. I'm usually just trying to find the center of the character, whoever that is. And all actors will tell you this. Most of them don't believe it, but they will tell you there are no small parts, only small actors. But everybody doesn't believe that. But I do. I believe that if you are invited to be part of something, and some of those were, important, became important movies. In fact, the Fugitive, I bought a house with the Fugitive money.
I'm going to tell you, you should. If it's a pleasure of a thriller to watch, and you're great in it.
Oh, thank you. Now that's a job that I almost didn't get.
Mm.
I auditioned for it, and of course, when you're auditioning for a part like one of the marshals, as an example, there's not, as you say, much dialogue there. So, how are you really going to audition? What material are you using to show what you can do and what your energy would be like? So, when I went in for my audition, I told the casting director, and this is for Andy Davis, and I guess there might have been a couple of producers in the room as well. But I, whispered to the casting director, I'm going to be reading the Lieutenant Gerard scenes.
Hell yeah.
And she said, no, that's already cast. That's going to be Tommy Lee. I said, I'm aware of that. I said, but in order for me to show you what I can bring, I want to have more to say than a couple of lines. So she said, okay, just wait a minute. So she goes over, and I guess she tells Andy Davis, the director, she wants to read the Gerard scenes. And so he says, okay, I'm good for a laugh. Go ahead. And so that's what I did. So I think it was in that, that he saw that I was brave enough to ask for the opportunity to. So that's what an audition is for. That's your opportunity to do your thing, and you should have some ownership in that room. But mostly actors, when they go into an audition setting, there's this belief that, we're just begging to be there. No, you gotta, somehow find the ability to own the space, because that's what you should be doing when you go into a room, even for that 3 minutes or that 5 minutes. Own it. You know what I mean? They can't, take that away from you. You may not get the job, but at least in that 3 to 5 minutes, taking some ownership can count for something.
I just watched The Fugitive and Waiting to Exhale in preparation for this interview today. And they're like, one of our favorite parts of this podcast and interviewing women is like looking for little details that maybe are an actor's details. And I noticed that Aaron Poole, your character in The Fugitive, has these like big gold statement earrings on at one point in the film. They're like in shot. You can like, they are a choice. Also, in Waiting to Exhale, you're Angela Bassett's divorce attorney, and you're wearing like this green blazer with like a Zulu print on the lapels. And I was wondering if any of those costume choices were you having conversations with the wardrobe department about what you wanted those characters to look, or how you would, if you found the character from the outside in it all.
Okay, so in terms of The Fugitive, I had just started twisting my hair, dreading it.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in twist, right? But I, was going to wear a wig, because I figured for continuity, that's what I would need to do. And I thought in terms, because one of the things we had the opportunity to do is we worked with the U.S. Marshal Service, and, went went out with them, and I met women that would be my counterpart and all of that, and I saw the way they dressed, and then I saw the way that they did their hair. And one of the things about hair for people that do that kind of work is you can't have a lot of hair, because a perpetrator could grab your hair and disable you. So most of them I saw wore very short hair or short wigs, because this makes you vulnerable. Lengthened hair would make you
Mm.
vulnerable. So that was a key thing. So I was already planning to wear this wig, and I had, selected one that I thought would be good. And so I had all of my costume fittings in LA, but they were already in North Carolina doing prep work and all of that. And so when I got to North Carolina, again, fully intending to wear the wig, the costume designer, Aggie Rogers, saw me with my natural hair, and she said, "That's powerful hair. I'm liking this hair. I'm digging this hair." So she said, "Well, put your the first outfit on. I want to show Annie." But she said, "Don't put your wig on. I want you to go in so he can look at the looks, but don't put the wig on." So they had a discussion about it, and they agreed that, oh, okay, this could be interesting. We haven't seen this kind of hair. So they wanted me to wear my own hair, and it became a big thing, because you got to find somebody that can do it, to twist it as it's growing, and match shots and all of that. But one of the interesting things about The Fugitive is, and I've never had this experience since, is they shot in chronological order.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they shot from page one, you know, page two, and that had to do with the fact that they wanted to have Harrison have the beard and dye the hair and be able to shave the beard and all of that, and they wanted to do it in real time,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want him to go through a whole movie with hair on his face, because it's Harrison Ford. But anyway, so they shot it in chronological order, and one of the downsides to that is, while we were shooting, Richard Jordan, who was playing the villain, passed away. So they had to go back and reshoot
Oh my
that
God.
with
Okay.
Joran Krob took over the
Oh
role.
Wow.
my God.
And they went back and reshot all of that, because Richard Jordan's stuff had been um, shot in chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but anyway, so that's one of the reasons the hair kind of worked out, is because in real time my hair could be growing.
Okay, that
Do you know
makes
what I
sense. Yeah,
mean?
that's cool.
Yeah, so it wasn't as much of a problem as I thought it was going to be. So I must say that it was Aggie Rogers who said, "Let's do that hair." And one day we went into they wanted the marshals to be dressed up at some when we're in a downtown hotel or something. They said, okay, they would have their best clothes on. So they took me to Marshall Fields in Chicago and got me a cashmere coat and all of that. And so we're looking at jewelry, and we see these earrings, these gold earrings they have African people on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so by then she had me wearing the little kufi hat, which it was like I was freezing my behind off. Everybody else got, stuff covering the ears and all of that. And I got this little cotton hat on top. Yeah, I was freezing. But anyway, so the earrings went with that look, that
Got it. Got it.
that she
Got it.
was Afrocentric, but it started with Aggie's idea of going with the
Your natural hair.
correct.
Love it.
Shout out Aggie. Okay. Okay, Elscott, one of the things we love discovering when we were doing research is this 1995 South African comedy Soweto Green.
Oh,
So we couldn't secure the entire thing to stream. So we were able to watch clips of it, but it's about an American couple relocating to Johannesburg post apartheid, looking to help to build a new society after Nelson Mandela is elected. Can you talk about this collaboration and like what it was like to headline this film? We were very intrigued by the premise and would love to be able to see the whole thing.
Oh, okay, great. So Soweto Green was written by Infunde Vundla, who was he and his wife Karen were friends of mine in New York at the Negro Ensemble Company.
Okay.
And Infundi is from South Africa, and he had relocated. He'd gone to school in this country because his father was part of Nelson Mandela's group. And when things got really rough over there, most of the people, within that political party sent their children outside of the country for safety.
Mm-hmm.
And in Funde and his brothers, one was sent to Canada, one was sent to England, one was sent to the US, and they all, went away from South Africa and got these brilliant educations. And when Mandela was freed and things started to open up for Black people, everybody went back, and they went back with these educations. And one of the things that Infundi had done is he'd become a playwright, and he'd, started to write films. He was working with Botchko, getting
Mm-hmm.
his training and all of that. So he had this education and this skill set, and he took it back to South Africa and became one of the biggest television producers over there. Still to this day, he is. So at some point, he comes over for a visit, and he said, "I've got a script that I would like you to do." And I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to, you know." And I said, "Fine, could you give me an opportunity to get to South Africa and work in a different way and see what it was like and all of that." And it was just like a magical experience because the world that I thought I was going to be walking into was not, really what it turned out to be. It was just so amazing on every level. And it was a comedy, and I'm playing John Connie's wife,
Yeah.
and I just absolutely fell in love with him, and I'd been, a big fan of the work that he and Winston and Shona did. So I was honored to be there, but it was really interesting because they don't shoot movies the way that we do, and their sensibility of comedy is not like ours or whatever. So it was, totally different than anything I'd experienced, but it was a lot of fun to work on it, and it was kind of a cultural re-education, for
Mm.
a Black person to kind of like be, everybody looked like me. South
Mm-hmm.
Africans look more like American Blacks than, people from other parts of Africa. South Africans look most like,
Mm.
American Blacks. So I was seeing people that looked like me, that I could be members of their family, and learning a lot. So it was just really an exquisite experience that I had doing that. But I must say, traveling to South Africa was kind of a traumatic experience because all I knew about South Africa was what you would see in documentaries and newsreels about how really horrid it was for Black people at the hands of the Afrikaners. And so I don't know if you know or not, but it's you fly 12 hours
Mm.
either into London or Paris, and then you've got to get off the plane and sleep over, and then get on another plane for the rest of the way because it's like a 24-hour trip.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the first leg of the trip, and there you're flying business class or first. I think it was first class this particular time, and it was wonderful. And they're bringing the the all the food, the cocktails, and you're relaxing and doing all of that. And you get to London, and then they give you a room in the hotel, and to the airport lodging where you can sleep, and they're taking care of you. And then you get on that plane going to South Africa, and then all of a sudden I became aware of I'm the only Black person on this plane,
Mm.
Mm.
and all the rest of these people that are going to South Africa are probably Afrikaners. I couldn't close my eyes. I was so scared. I was suddenly so scared of what I thought I was going to be encountering.
Right.
And it started on that plane ride. But anyway, there had been a drought there, and when we landed, the skies opened and it started to rain. And so, why do I tell you this? Because at the end of the trip, they do a naming ceremony, and Hugh Masekela was the person that gave me my name, which is Namvula, which means bringer of the rain. Because when I arrived, the sky opened and it started to rain. So that's just an example of the loveliness of what it means to kind of be part of something that you should be a part of. Everybody should have the experience of reconnecting to their spiritual roots. And I had an opportunity to do that. Now, one more quick story about Soweto
Yeah.
Green. Okay, so I don't know if you saw the scene where they arrive, and my husband is a botanist,
Mhm.
and his idea is he's going to go back to his country and plant trees and make
Mhm.
it green. Okay, so we get there, and we're on our way to wherever we're going, and we're robbed because that was the big thing. We're machine guns and all of that. People carry machine guns in South Africa at that time. So we're robbed, and we have to get on what is like a bus to continue to get to where we're going. And it's the worst of the worst. It's like the worst kind of slum that it is. And I'm thinking, like, I thought my husband is taking me to, because you think of an African being in another country, that he's a prince in his homeland, but we're in like this slum, and we're actually shooting in this area. And the people that were watching us, what they were watching was white people walking up to me, a Black woman, and touching up my makeup, where it was a lot of sun, a white person holding an umbrella over me to keep the sun off of me, another white person arranging my hair. So a woman, you know is watching from her little hut this happening, and she can't figure out what the hell is this. All these white people are servicing this Black woman. What is going on? So she finally comes out, and she comes over, and she speaks to the hair and makeup people in Afrikaans, and they all laugh. And finally, what she does is she tries to rub my hand, and she does it again because she thought I was white. And she was just trying to see in her lifetime, how could it be possible that she's seeing this thing?
Mhm.
and her name was Sylvia. And that is a story that I can tell to say that's what it was really like, because you were really colliding with what the real thing is
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
at that time. But that was quite an amazing experience to have a Black woman trying to rub the black off of me because she just couldn't believe what she was saying.
Yeah, I wish that the film was more readily available. So I'm hoping that it maybe will find its way to streaming, because it really is what an incredible experience.
I think I will just. I'm still in touch with the filmmakers, so I think I'll see what we can do about
Yeah,
that.
that would be lovely.
Hmm.
Okay, L. Scott, in 1988, you won a Tony Award, of course, for your star-making turn in August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone.
Wait. You said star making turn.
Yeah, don't you think?
No.
It didn't feel like a star-making turn.
No, that's exactly what didn't happen.
Uh, it's
No,
so. I mean, that's what it is. It's right. You win a Tony and it doesn't move the needle. Is that how it felt?
it didn't move the needle. No, it did not move the needle.
It's so frustrating because, like, what a huge thing to be able to work in an August Wilson play on Broadway in one of the Pittsburgh cycle plays. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that. Can you talk a little bit about the experience and, like, whether or not you got to work with Mr. Wilson at all?
Mr. Wilson, August Wilson. Yeah. Okay. So, I had done a show called Play of Giants at Yale Rep, and I think maybe 85, 86. And while I was doing that play, I got hit by a car
Mm,
during the run of the show, and was in a back brace for about 2 years. So the first audition that I had after that accident was for Joe Turner's Come and Gone. But I had met August 2 months before that, because the guy I was living with at the time was doing fences
okay.
on a regional tour of fences, and I went out to see him at one of I think it was Jiva in New York, the Jiva Theater.
Okay.
Anyway, so I met August for the first time then, and he gave me the play to read. And of course, I had read Fences, but now and I'd already seen Ma Rainey's Black Bottom,
Mm-hmm.
but I hadn't met him yet. But I was very familiar with both Ma Rainey and Fences. And now I'm reading Joe Turner, and I said, he didn't write these plays. He probably found them in a suitcase. They were so unlike him. You know what I
Mm,
mean? He was such a cool guy. I mean, just like really cool. But his plays, I don't know, have kind of a music and a poetry to them that didn't fit who the guy was, in my opinion. But anyway, I would, later get to know him, very well. And of course, I was, thrilled to be part of it. I didn't want the part of Bertha, though.
right.
I was more interested in Maddie or Molly. And I think Mary Alice was supposed to do Joe Turner. She was supposed to do Bertha, but she wanted to do one of the other parts too. I guess she was tired of being cast as, the salt of the earth,
Mm-hmm.
and she
Yeah.
wanted to explore something else, but no. So she dropped out and she didn't want to do it. And so that's, when I was invited in to read for it, and that's the part that I got, which is Bertha. But it was, yeah, it was great working on it, because it's always a thrill to work on something from the ground up, because you become a collaborator in ways that people don't even, know about. And so that was, quite exciting to be with Lloyd Richards, the greatness of Lloyd Richards, and just the brilliance of August Wilson. And in those days, they would take the plays out on the road, do a regional tour on their march to Broadway. So yeah, we toured, all over the country with that play
Yeah.
on the way to Broadway. It took us about 2 years to get the play in. So it was, we became a family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, yeah, great in that way.
El Scott, you were a member of the Negro Ensemble Company that was founded in, I believe, 1967 and was in residence here in New York at the St. Mark's Playhouse. And for our listeners, some of the other famous alum include Mary Alice, Lynn Whitfield, Angela Bassett, Rosalind Cash, Jack K. Harry, Felicia Rashad, and Latanya Richardson. How did you get involved with the Negro Ensemble Company? And, like, who
Okay,
was
I
your
want
mentor?
to tell that story, but I want to correct you.
Oh, please.
I want to correct you too when you're talking about the list of the. I guess you're just sort of like throwing out like names that would be. Yeah, I did play a play or two with those various people, but the original members of the Negro Ensemble Company, when I joined, were Barbara Montgomery, Francis Foster, Michelle Shea, um, Adolph Caesar, Graham Brown, Charlie Brown, Sam Art Williams, and that was a new company.
Okay.
The original company included Hattie Winston, Judy Ann Elder, Rosalind Cash, Denise Nicholas, and I'm forgetting somebody, and then a group of men also: Norman Bush, Allie Woods, Robert Hooks was one of the founders of the company. But so there were a number of giants in the original company that did the important work that made the Negro Ensemble Company what it was and what it remains.
Yeah.
And when I went to New York, I went to New York to study with Uta Hagen, but I had to audition to study. And I flew there for the audition process. And, I had to audition for a proctor first. And then they said, come back next week and you'll, audition for Uta Hagen. So Uta Hagen's acting school at the time was at HB Studios on the west side of the Village. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sitting there and I'm waiting for my audition with Uta Hagen, and there's a woman reading the trade paper backstage, which I'd never seen before. And she's got it open to an ad that says auditions, Negro Ensemble Company. Right. And I said, oh, the Negro Ensemble Company. I just saw a play of theirs on PBS, The First Breeze of Summer, and oh my God, and they're having auditions and da 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 da. So the young woman said, "Well, I'm walking over there after this because Negro Ensemble Company was in the East Village on St. Mark's." Okay, so after my Uta Hagen audition, I walked across the village with this woman. She walked me across because I didn't know where I was going. And at that time, you open the doors and you go up a flight of stairs to get to the Negro Ensemble Company. And there was a line of people waiting to get to the top of the stairs to audition. At that time, if you had an equity card, you could go to the front of a line. Okay.
Mm.
And I happened to have my equity card. Okay. So I was able to just march up to the top of the stairs and just walk over. And, I went ahead of all those people that were waiting. And there was a woman that was interviewing people, and I put down my picture and resume, and it was a resume that had like a bunch of junk on it, a bunch of lies because I hadn't really done anything. And I had gotten like an answering service for the days that I was going to be in town auditioning for Uta Hagen, because in case she would call me, I needed an answering service, and it was called the Green Room. So I had the Green Room telephone number on my resume that I'd had printed up. And so the woman looks at my resume and she said, well, we're looking for people with more experience. And she hands it back to me. But thank you for stopping by. And she's handing me back my phony resume and picture. So I said, oh, okay, thank you. So I turned to leave and something turned me back around, and I said to her, how do you know what I can do just by looking at a piece of paper? And she said, "Oh, so you think I'm supposed to just give you an audition?" I said, "Well, that's what I came for." And she said, "Okay, come back tomorrow at 3:15." So I came back the next day at 3:15, and I was standing in front of Douglas Turner Ward auditioning, and I did the same two pieces for him that I had done for Uta Hagen, my classical and my contemporary piece. You remember how you used to have to do that for every audition?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have a classical and then a contemporary, and I'm doing this heavy language piece. I desire you do me right and justice and bestow your pity on me, for I am a most poor woman and a stranger, born not of your dominion, having here no friend indifferent, nor no more assurance of equal friendship and proceedings. Alas, sir, in what have I offended you? So I go out of this language, of Catherine pleading to Henry, into my contemporary. So I go from that to niggas, niggas, niggas. I'm sick of niggas, ain't you? And he fell on the floor, and there were people peeking in the door to see how I was going to do because they'd taken a chance giving me this audition. But I was on cloud nine when I left that audition, and that was enough for me.
Mm.
And I get back to where I was staying, and I got my message from the green room that I've been accepted into Uta's class. So I'm happy. I auditioned for NEC and I'm getting into Uta's class. And so I go back to Chicago to pack my bags for Uta's class. And when I get back, I get a call from somebody at the Negro Ensemble Company. Says, "We've been looking for you all over New York. Uh, what are you doing back in Chicago? We thought you were." I said, "No, but I'm coming back." Whatever. He says, "Well, good, because we would like to offer you a contract to become a member of the Negro Ensemble Company." So that's how that happened. And so that was in 1978. And by 1979, we were doing Home, which moved to Broadway. So it's like a year and a half later, I'm making my Broadway debut, having no sense that I was ready to do anything other than study.
That's incredible.
It became my education. Everybody at the
Yeah.
Negro Ensemble Company became my teacher, because I was completely out of my depth. I did not think I belonged there. And Adolf Caesar said to me, if you don't think you belong here, then you don't. So you got to start, believing in yourself, because you wouldn't have been hired if you weren't supposed to be here. So,
It's such an incredibly like rich welcome to New York moment. So incredible.
yeah. And it essentially changed my life, because I was only expecting to, be in New York for, that, 12 weeks for Uda's class. And I thought, well, I'll just go back to my boring life in Chicago after having that experience. But suddenly being there, having a job, working for 9 months, and then at the end of that 9 months, they invited me back for the next season. So then I had to make a decision. Am I going back to my life in Chicago, or am I going forward to my life in New York? That changed everything for me, because I was, married with a young son, and suddenly had to make a decision to say, I think I'm being called to do this.
Yeah. And did you stick with Uta Hagen? And can you share any stories? Like, did you enjoy studying with her?
Oh boy. No, I couldn't stick because she did not, you were not allowed to work when
Ah,
you were
right. Okay.
studying.
Oh, okay.
So she asked me to give up my spot because those were very coveted
Right.
spots in her acting class. But I, did do, four. And I remember the first time I got up, because she would assign, the scenes and your scene partner, and you would get together with that person, and then you'd
Mm-hmm.
bring the work back in for the class. And my first time up, uh, I don't know, maybe I got 45 seconds of it, and she said, "Stop, stop, stop, sit down. You're acting. Sit." So then she started to, do a whole lecture on what I'd done wrong. I mean, I was used as the example.
Oh God.
Right.
Right.
You see what just happened there? No moment before, no nothing. She opened her mouth, she started acting, acting. I was so embarrassed because I thought, okay, you audition and she says you're talented enough to join the
Right.
class, but the first time up, you're shown as a person that needs all the training in the world, so it was just like it was shocking. It was a big shock because I
Yeah.
thought she was going to say, "Oh, you're the best thing since sliced bread," or
Right.
whatever. But
Right.
that went a long way in leading me towards what we were talking about earlier, Damien. It's because it's not about just fakely bringing, fake stuff to the thing to make it, to shape it how you want it.
Yep.
Because Uta Hagen was in her The Actor Prepares all about, finding all of those moments before. Like there's a bunch of stuff that happens before you can ever open your mouth. There's a bunch of things that happen when you enter the room that you are taking the temperature of the room that you're in. But most actors you see, they just come in and they're acting. But her training was very, very specific, and it was about the minute parts of human behavior
Mm-hmm.
that inform the truth of what you're doing, which was, wonderful because I knew she would be wonderful because I'd seen her on the Mike Douglas show when I
Yeah.
was
Mm.
in Chicago, and she was promoting a movie called The Other that she had done. She was the grandmother of these the twins, and one of them was a devil, and
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so she was so wonderful in that movie, and she was on the Mike Douglas show talking about the movie, and she was talking about, the fact that she'd been Desdemona to Paul Robeson's Othello, and that she had an acting school with her husband Herbert Berghoff in New York called HB Studios, and that's when it went into my mind. God, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could get to New York and study with her? And it took me like 2 years to, I started forming the plan in my head, like, how am I going to get there? I didn't know how I was going to get there, but it was in my head that if I can get there, I can study with this great teacher. And I got there and I got chosen. But the first time up, stop, sit.
Amazing.
Yeah, but yeah, it was wonderful to touch the greatness of that woman
Mm.
as well. Because even in the 4 or 5 classes that I was able to take, it was just so specific.
Yeah.
Okay, L. Scott Caldwell. We've entered the part of the show that we call rapid fire. This is so we can get everything else out that we need to before we part ways. You can take your time if you need to, but it is rapid fire for me and Anne. We are giving you a lot, okay? You can take your time. Up first. You got to go toe-to-toe with Viola Davis on How to Get Away with Murder in a super juicy arc during seasons 3 and 4. Being that you are both Tony-winning theater folks, did you and Viola rehearse together, or was it all saved up for that first take?
Well, okay, so I did. Viola was coming off of her Oscar-winning performance in Fences
Fences.
when we were shooting that show. And this was just a straight offer. And so I figured she had something to do with, who would be in the cell with her, that it was her idea to have me be part of that. So that was, pretty terrific. And they were trying to shoot her out because she was going on a press tour or whatever. And there was a big stunt where the other person in the cell with us was supposed to beat her down, right? And we had rehearsed it, and we go away, and then the stand-ins come in and rehearse and whatever. And then when you come back, the stand-in is supposed to tell you if any of the blocking has changed or any of that. So my blocking was to, at a certain point, run to the cell, the front of the cell, to yell for the guard, because Viola's character is about to get her butt kicked, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to scream for the guard. So none of that had changed, but what had changed, which nobody told me, is they decided to shoot from different angles, and they decided to put a camera on a crane so that they could shoot down. So they lit above the cell, and that wasn't in the original rehearsal. So when I run to grab the bars to yell for the guard, I ran into the bars. My mouth was already open, and I broke my front 6 teeth.
Oh my God. What?
Okay.
God.
And nobody knew this was happening because the cameras are on Viola getting beat up. So the women that were in the cells across from us were saying, "Oh, Scotty's down, Scotty's down,"
Oh no, not Scotty's down.
because I was crumbling down. Okay, because I also had a concussion. I hit my head and hit my teeth. Okay. So, they called in the medics, and, they called my dentist and all of that, because it's whatever. And the director comes to me and says, "Oh, Scotty, are you going to be okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'll be okay." She says, "Well, you got 2 more shots, and we need to get Viola out of here. So we need to keep shooting. So would you be okay with, I'm not going to bring the camera in close, but are you able to keep going?
Oh my God.
Okay.
Jesus.
We got 2 more shots." And I said, "Yeah, I guess.
Oh my
I
God.
guess I can. I guess I'll be okay." So anyway, I guess because I was such a trooper and did that for them, they invited me back for the real juice
Yeah.
that they gave
Mm-hmm.
me to do as Jasmine Bromell. I think Viola was talking to me, and Paris Barkley, who directed, were talking to me about, well, when you're going to do a monologue, there's a certain, people get it all wrong when they're doing that. There's a certain way you got to approach whatever. I said, "I think I'm good. I think I'm good." Because I already knew that I had found the truth of the character. I already knew that. I knew that in my soul that I knew the truth of this woman, and it didn't require any acting. So I wasn't worried about, am I going to be able to make it emotional or whatever, because it could be whatever it is, because sometimes it's really, even when people are suffering the most, it's, past the salt.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not always the tears and the snot and all of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Heartbreak has a lot of different shapes, and I have seen so many people, real people, confronted with real suffering when they are, you put the camera in their face, and they start to break, and they always apologize and they say, "Excuse me," because nobody wants to show you that. So to be trying to show that,
Mm.
to
Mm.
me, is not real. So I just felt like if emotion comes, it comes. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's going to be real for how I've reached the center of this character. I think I might have done it maybe 6 or 7 times, and every time I did it, I found a different truth in it each time. They were very pleased with what it was. They didn't know what it was going to be, had no idea,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody was quite pleased with what it turned out to be. And in fact, they invited me back to kill the character, and I was complaining about that. He said, "Scotty, you don't understand. If they invite you back just to be the dead body, that's because you earned that.
Yeah.
Because they could just say that it happened, but they
Oh, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
want your body in here, because the kind of investment that you've made in that character, the audience is already feeling that, and they are saying, the producers are basically saying, you've earned the right to come back and be this dead body, because they want to know what happened to Jasmine. That's how invested they are in what you were able to do with the character. So anyway, that was like, yeah,
It was
it
such a
was.
good arc, but I'm sorry that your teeth suffered for your arc.
My
Yeah,
She's
so
same too.
yeah, and I had to use, what do they call when they don't let you, workman's comp.
yeah. Well, I was about to say they should have paid for. Hopefully, they paid for all the dental bills.
Yeah, they did, but
Yeah.
it was, over a 2.5 year period
Hmm.
before, they
Right.
were able to fix my mouth.
Well, your teeth
Yeah.
look great.
Thank you.
Okay, L. Scott, your first name is. I think your government name is Laverne, but you go by L. Scott Caldwell professionally. Tell
Did
us
you
the.
say government?
Yeah,
Listen
I
at
said
you.
government name. Can you tell us the origin story of L. Scott?
Oh, okay. So when I first got to New York with because my resume said Laverne Scott Caldwell, so that was my full name. And when I was invited to join the Negro Ensemble Company, they were doing this big rollout announcing that the company was, here's the new company and all of that. But they had already done the artwork for the posters and the programming and all of that. And the longest name was Barbara Montgomery. So my name, Laverne Scott Caldwell, had too many letters because they had already done the layout. So I think it was Francis Foster said, well, why don't you, because we've been calling you Scotty, Scotty Caldwell? I said, no, because no. And then they said, well, Scott Caldwell. Well, and then they looked it up, and I couldn't use just Scott Caldwell because somebody was already in the union with that name.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever gets there first, it's different
Mm-hmm.
now, but at that time, somebody else was already using Scott Caldwell. So she said, well, how about just the initial L? and check this. Somebody check that. Is that okay? Yeah, that fits. Okay, so I said, okay, and so that's how it happened, just like that. And so then it was just L. Scott, and then just became mysterious. So I just left it like that, and it was IMDb that outed me. Uh, you know.
They're a problem.
Rude.
They're rude, but it is glamorous. It's very glamorous.
I agree. It's very cool.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, L. Scott, we talked about The Fugitive a lot tonight, but I have always held like a some sort of special place in my heart for the curmudgeon known as Tommy Lee Jones for some reason. What kind of scene partner was he? He just seems notoriously grumpy. Tell us what you can.
Well, he might be considered grumpy, but I don't know if you know anything about him, but he's a highly intelligent,
Yes, he's brilliant.
very educated,
Yes.
thespian.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I do know that and I love him for it.
But anyway, very, very well read, loved, talking literature and all of that. But I found that mostly he wanted something rough to rub up against. That was who the character
Yeah.
was. And maybe that was his way of, maybe not doing method, but just being in that kind of space. But he was in a different dressing room. He had his own team.
Yeah.
So we were like in the hair and makeup trailer with everybody.
Yeah.
His stuff was separate, as did Harrison Ford. They both had separate digs, and they weren't at hotels with other people, and they weren't part of
The
that.
camera, they weren't, it wasn't a big chummy crew.
No,
Yeah.
although no, I mean they partied. That was a party, and
Okay.
they love to party. All the way from the director all the way down. They partied.
Okay.
But he was very kind to me because obviously he could see that this was the first big thing that I'd done, and it's like I had trouble. I said, how in the heck is it happening that Joey keeps being next to Tommy, and I'm watching because I'm hitting my mark, but I'm out of the shot, and I started to catch on. Oh, I see what's going on. Is like Joey's. Whenever Tommy would move off of a mark, Joey would move into the mark Tommy had been on. So he was always kind of like right over his shoulder kind of thing. And it's like, oh, okay. So if you're going to be in the movie, you got to find a way to
Oh my God.
do something other than just hit your mark, which was tough. It was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's such a hustle.
yeah. That was a coming of age kind of experience because I learned, so much, and you have to learn how to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. L. Scott Caldwell. Last question, and it's an important one. You play a judge on Melrose Place, in Mystery Alaska, on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and Love Lies and Murder, and Queen Supremes, plus the mother of a judge in All Rise, a public defender in The Net, and Angela Bassett's divorce attorney in Waiting to Exhale. What is it about L. Scott Caldwell that screams judiciary?
I didn't know I had played that many judges. Thank you for that. Obviously, but I'll say this: that I've played a lawyer or a judge 27 times, but I've never won a case. Now, what does that mean, Damien?
What does it mean?
Yeah, what do you think that means?
Maybe you're not a good attorney.
No, I think I'm passable, but the point is, those characters could be anything. They just happen to be titled judge or happen to be titled lawyer or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how do you fit a person of color into the story?
Totally.
Know?
Yes.
So because the only important or most important one would have been the Queen Supreme, because we only shot 13 episodes of that, but if it had gone on, that would definitely have been a judge that was winning in every way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I've played doctors as well
Yeah.
as judges, and that pleases me that I'm seen as a person that could, show that I've had enough education and enough toughness to be in those kinds of positions. Yeah.
Totally. We've interviewed over 100 women on this show, and I feel like whenever we speak with women of color, they often, especially black women, they are often play lots of cops, lots of judges, lots of doctors, lots of nurses, and it's just interesting though. Like, do you feel like you've gotten to play like dumb or weak because you so often are cast as wise and strong?
Well, dumb is an interesting word, Damien. I think you can do better. I think I'll give you time to come up with
Yeah, like
another
daffy
word.
or like superficial or shallow.
You can cut
I
that. You can
I
cut
know I'm being
part
I
where
know I'm
you
being
can cut out the
simplistic.
part where I spanked you. Okay.
No, that's the
I
good
know I
stuff.
know
That's the good stuff.
I know I'm being simplistic. I always just think like when you're an actor, you're like, okay, like obviously I can do this, but like come on.
No, I mean, but obviously, we were just talking about Jasmine. She had no education. She had no nothing.
Yeah, that's true. It's
It
a
was
good point.
stripped from her as a girl. She didn't even get an education,
Yeah.
and was just out there in the streets. So yeah, she's a polar opposite
Yeah.
to
Antithetical to some of those other
yeah,
characters.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I've run the gamut, and I think that's it's interesting that you say, in your spiel, that you talk to character actresses, because they're in my opinion, they're the backbone.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the bee's knees. They're what we care about because they're what keep the like as you said, like it's like how do you're fitting these characters into the story. We're all cogs in a machine telling a story, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's who we
So
care about.
yeah. Uh-huh. So I enjoy the fact that I've been known as a character actor. Sometimes I get a little envious of other people that have also had the opportunity to step out and be like the leading lady. But that, I think I'm okay, because my dream was always to be a working actress. I never dreamed of being a star, or I never dreamed of being famous or any of that. I just dreamed of being a working actor, and I've achieved that. I've done it long enough to have three pensions.
Mm.
Yeah, and so I think that people need to hear that, and this kind of show, provides the opportunity to have me say that, you know, you can you can do something that is worthwhile and wonderful, even if it doesn't get you to the tippy top. That there can be, joy within those areas of having your nose pressed up against the window pane, seeing it happen, and maybe one day. But to be able to land solidly in a space where I've been able to work for 40 years and have those 106 credits that you talked about, and be proud of it, even if it hasn't been, number one on the call sheet. You can still find joy in this, and it's an honorable profession. And I'm proud to say I'm an actor. Yeah.
Thank you so much, L. Scott Caldwell. This was a total pleasure. We really appreciate it. And you wrapped us up there so beautifully. So well said.
Well, thank you. And I know you know by now, it's fabulous what you're doing, and thank you for it. There's nothing else like it.
Getting to remind L. Scott Caldwell that she died on Insecure is one of the highlights, I think, of this entire 6 seasons of podcasting.
What? It was... And then
We left the full pause in, just to be clear. Like, I was like, should I trim this pause? Like, are people going to think that the audio cuts out? And it's like, no, L. Scott is really considering, like, I didn't die. What are you talking about?
like I get very flushed, I guess is the word, right? Like I blush very easily, and I feel like I was so hot in the face because I was like, oh my God, did I like misremember?
Right.
Like, did I do something wrong in crafting this question? But no, she just forgot that she died.
That's so cool. It felt so special to talk to her because we really had been after her for so long.
Also, I feel like it's important to mention because we talked about this when we were talking about Bad Monkey, which also, like, God, the Crystal stuff is incredible.
Speaking of weird documentaries to tie something back to, I was so glad that you brought up
Chimp Crazy. But I wondered based on her relationship with Crystal, like, it didn't seem like maybe it was a movie she should watch because I felt like she felt conflicted about her not having, about Crystal, kind of like, she was kind of like, I love Crystal and she's a good actor, but also like she has no agency and she's like a baby, like an animal.
Damien, she's 31. I put her in the show notes because I was like, oh, what's her? Oh, Crystal the Monkey. Oh my God. And I was like, I've seen so much of Crystal the Monkey.
Well, she's not Marcel from Friends, is she?
I don't, now we have to check, but she is in George of the Jungle. And,
Outbreak?
Oh my God, I wish.
I mean, they were all capuchin monkeys.
George of the Jungle, Night at the Museum, Hangover Part 2, The Fabelmans. Oh my God, I forgot there was a monkey in The Fabelmans. And Dr. Dolittle, American Pie, Dr. Dolittle 2, Garfield the Movie, Fun with Dick and Jane, Failure to Launch. Did Sarah Jessica Parker have a scene with her?
I don't know. Let's find out.
Oh my God, she does period movies. 3:10 to Yuma. She was period. Love her. Oh my God. Anyway, she's 31, so she's not a baby, but she is.
But I meant like she's a baby, like an animal. Like that's what I mean when I'm saying. I'm not saying she's like a 1-year-old monkey. I'm just saying like she doesn't.
Yeah, because she's worked hard. When L. Scott said like, oh, she put her hands on her legs, and she was like, whew. I just imagine her with like a little lunch pail, like she's working at her construction job, and she's like, whew, got a break for the day. Oh my God. Anyway, L. Scott really gave us a lot more.
I can't get over thinking about the lunchbox.
She's a monkey hard at work. I know. I wasn't expecting to have that emotional conversation with her about Crystal the Monkey. And I thought L. Scott, I totally got it. It was just like.
Completely.
She felt conflicted about having Crystal work a full 8-hour workday. It's tough. I felt like we had a real heart-to-heart with a character actress of the finest caliber, and I feel lucky that she finally said yes.
Completely. Thank you so much, L. Scott, and thank you to you for listening to this episode. We're so happy that you found us or that you've come back. If you liked what you heard, please give us a little 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you like us that much, please go on over to Patreon. Link is in the bio of this episode. You can click out to the patreon.com/YouMightKnowHerFrom. You can also follow us at Damien Bellino, Damien with an A, and my friend over here, Rhoda Mann, RODEMANNE. You can follow us on all of the things, and you can also follow You Might Know Her From.
Watch.
I think we're gonna watch Tommy Petty.
Tommy Petty. We're gonna watch Tom Petty music videos. Specifically, Damien requested the one.
Don't come around here no more. Is that right?
I don't remember.
It's not the one where
is it not Into the Great Wide Open?
Oh, I don't know. It's when the little Alice one from. It's an Alice from Alice in Wonderland turns into a cake. We're gonna watch it.
And then you also requested that horrible diabolical Genesis video where there's like giant Reagan puppets.
I hate it so much. It scared me as a kid.
Yeah.
I hate
but
it.
I also, it's like scary, but I need to see it again.